Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to RLAfterShock, the quintessential podcast for everything that is European Rocket League esports. We're into podcast number 26, and finally, we're kicking off the RLCS. I'm the Eternal J. Joining me is Digital Bacon. My friend, how are you doing on this fine afternoon?
Doing very good. We just had the weekend with RLCS kicking off, and that was great fun to watch. A couple of new things are entering the fray. We finally got a bit of news, and the curtains pulled back. So it's an exciting time for Rocket League.
Indeed it is, there's finally a little bit of positive news to look forward to, both in front of the curtain and behind the curtain as well. We just got some news just last night about certain things going on in regards to the Rival series. We're not going to say that on air because we've been asked specifically not to, but rest assured, it's going to be kind of exciting, especially if those of you who didn't really appreciate the format of the RLRS as of up to today. So certainly that's what we were fucking saying. So, hearing everything about this is fucking fantastic, especially considering only a few podcasts ago we were complaining about this very thing. But I'm going to shut up about that because I'm going to give up too much information. A couple of things to address today. If you're watching the video version, if you're a constant video watcher, apologies, but there is no cams due to the fact that there is no live stream edition. To be honest, I've got work and I can't really do a scheduling a live version this week. Honestly, it's probably going to be looking at that for the next few weeks, to be honest. So I'd recommend you subscribe to the audio version of the podcast at anchor.fm/RLAfterShock, where you can find your listings on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and any other platforms that you may wish to request. So with that being said, let's move into the news for this week. It's been a bit of a slow one, but there have been some pretty big announcements, and we're going to start off, I think, with the Esports Shop, because thank fuck it's actually here, Bacon.
Yeah, this was a really weird one because it was, the announcement back in October. They're like, oh, we're working on all of this. And then out of nowhere, oh, guys, 2 weeks' time, you've got the Esports Shop, which I'm just saying, give us a little bit of heads up and, build that hype. But I'm happy it's finally coming. We don't know exactly what's going to be in the Esports Shop just yet, but we know it's going to be in the next big update alongside Rocket Pass free, which I could see the new Rocket Pass maybe having some tie-ins to how that works. Maybe it's got, you've got to buy stuff with keys, so the decryptors will be quite nice from the new Rocket Pass, to go buy stuff. But also, on top of that, stuff like HDR support, the new replay effects that they're putting in. I'm excited for this. Content creators should hopefully be quite good with all that because, HDR, I don't know about you, Jay, but in TVs is going to be the next big thing. 4K, of course, is already out, but HDR is just going to make Rocket League look so beautiful. Just look at the boost and how it all fluctuates with all the colors. That's going to be lush.
Yeah, HDR is a really cool graphic technology, honestly. I've been enjoying it for a very long time myself because back in university, we actually got to toy with a lot of experimental equipment, and that included $50,000 cameras, and we were just oh God, let's not break any of this stuff. Otherwise, we are not going to pay off.
20-year-olds, why?
Exactly. It's just rock up one time when I was fucking hungover after a freshers party, and it's been given this $50,000 rig that's half the size of my fucking torso, and it's just this is HDR already, boy. It's do you want to trust me with this? The answer to that question was obviously no. But, obviously exciting updates coming to the game, especially the Esports Shop. We haven't got any information on what's being said, but last week they said that the updates and all the information regarding that will be coming this week, and the Esports Shop should be launching on April 16th. So that should be just about in time just in time for next week's podcast, actually. So hopefully we'll get a chance to take a look at that and break it down for the show next time.
Yeah, the only thing we can say is still hoping it's not just antennas and hats. We want to see decals. God, yeah. We want to see a little bit more than that because then it's okay, that was worth the wait. That's all we're going to say. We're not going to make any judgment yet because we've got nothing to judge. We haven't seen any pictures, have we? So let's just hope that it's good shit in there.
I mean, that's the thing. We just saw the MLB pack get launched, and we were saying on that particular podcast when we broke it down, it was look, this is the basis. This is what you need to do. It's not just hats and things. It's also banners and shit and decals and shit and all these things that you can put on your car. There's so many customization options in Rocket League. If they only give us toppers and antennas and hats, I will be pissed. I don't think that's I don't think that's a controversial statement to stay there from anybody else.
With the MLB pack, I'm going to say it sort of works because it's a very low cost. You got to remember the pack's only. I'm going to whip up Steam just whilst we're talking, Jay, but it's really low cost. So for you to get all of the teams within the MLB in that pack, it sort of makes sense. But I know from a lot of guys, like baseball fans, you might only want to buy one or two teams, and you do want that decal. You do want the... I doubt wheels, because it's going to be hard to get wheels to look good and not tacky, you know. But I'm talking banners and that sort of thing. Like those WWE banners that were just given away for free, they were actually really cool. You don't see many people use them because they want other little stuff that sort of fits with their theme. Like, can you remember, well, talking about Turtle, just coming onto the desk, of course, for RLCS, but he would always have that turtle banner, which just fits with their sort of theme, and that's what more players want, you know. Not the WWE was cool, but it doesn't go with my personality and that I'm trying to portray as a player, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, a similar sort of situation to the rest of the DLC stuff that they've been having all the tie-ins, you know, like, yeah, it's great we've got WWE and MLB, but where is our Premiership stuff, which we've talked about in the past. I don't want to hark on it too much again because there is other stuff to talk about.
I want it so bad. Like, and those badges would look so good on cars and that. And just quickly to update, the MLB pack is only £2.09. I think that's $2.99 over in America. That is nothing. I was actually surprised it's that cheap. Like, I thought it'd be about I thought it was £3 or so. So for them to do it that cheap, they're essentially like they're not making a lot of money off this.
Yeah, no, we'll see how everything sort of like rolls over with that particular case. But I'm hoping they'll make a lot more money with the esports shop, because if it's a one-time thing and it doesn't get brought up because of lack of profits, I will be fucking annoyed. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be, because we've been begging for this for ages. So yeah, exciting times in the esports department, and more exciting times in the esports department. They've finally been picked up, Bacon. They've finally been picked up. Do you know who I'm talking about? I'm talking about Savage. The rumours have finally come true. FC Barcelona have signed the Savage side, which just promoted to the RLCS this season. Oh, man, through all the months of teasing and prodding and peeking, and the Savage guy is just like, you know, is giving little hints and dropping little bombs here and there. The rumours that maybe they might end up getting picked up by fucking, you know, Fnatic or anything like that. It's like, finally, they've actually announced the organisation, and it is, by all stretch of the imagination, a massive, massive form in Barcelona.
I mean, Jay, we knew for quite a while that it was Barcelona, not because of all their like really obvious tweets and prods and that, but purely because we were looking at the whole LPE scene, which, let's just say, we haven't seen anything from in the last like month and a half, and that's meant to be going live next month sometime, so who knows what's going on with that. But that was like one of the initial like reasons Barca wanting to just come in and essentially stomp everyone. We even were there going, why are you picking up this team Savage when they are just going to stomp everyone? That's good for your image, but sort of bad for the whole league. But they still went through with it. And I think what everyone is most interested about is that we're talking about this Premiership football pack. Let's get a Champions League pack, because we've now got PSG and Barca. Oh, dear God, we're going to have some real cool matches coming up down the line. I cannot wait for that.
Put that out in EU, you'll make a shit ton of money.
Oh,
like,
yes.
you, it's not even a question about it. You will make a shit ton of money out of that one, so... They've already got two of the teams in there already. So let's see a third. Let's see even more. Let's see the
I can't wait for the car decals. Can we just think of that as well? Like, imagine the jerseys, but on cars, essentially. Like, this is one thing as well with the esports shop, is that on the RLCS streams, and every single, like, esports stream there's going to be, is these guys, you're hoping they're doing decals, because then you'll have like team jerseys. Like, I want a home kit and an away kit, you know? Like, how cool would that be?
Yeah, I mean, you know, for certain, it would be cool. Like, again, you put it out in EU, you'll make money. Easy as that. Right, so that's that with the esports shop and items and everything. And our third piece of news, sadly, we're going to end on a bit of a low note, as is standard with this podcast, I think, here, Bacon.
Did you see what I was writing in the rival staff chat the other day?
I didn't catch any of that, no.
About this. I'm not seeing this as a low point. This is a mixed bag for me. So,
Well, I say low point
announce
because
it
no one in
anyway.
EU, right? Let me explain my reasoning behind calling it a low point. And my main reasoning is because a lot of people in EU who probably will listen to this podcast will say, "Oh, it's not an EU LAN. We're pissed because Landon was off the chain," and you know, all these things are true, right? But to be honest, I don't think the specific LAN announcement and the location is a particular problem. Like, it's a world championship at the end of the day. I don't expect it to be held from one particular city or one particular region, you know, but. My thing about this is the actual venue itself, right? This is the reason why, as those of you who don't know what we're talking about, by the way, we're talking about the announcement for LAN for the RLCS coming up in a couple months' time. They've gone to the Prudential Center in New Jersey. This is a near 20,000 capacity venue. And I'm not being funny, but we're not going to sell out anywhere near that amount of fucking tickets.
Yeah, and I was looking at the whole sort of, looking at the website and, like, you know, near enough how it's set out, because you can rent out the Prudential Center. Of course, it's more like a contact basis sort of scenario. And to be realistic, you'd be looking to set up like a sort of theatre set up, really, with the amount of seats. So you're essentially cutting that in half. So they'd be looking at selling, I don't know, 10,000. But even then...
Still not going to make that.
No. We were... taken back to the Copper Box Arena in London, which was a fantastic turnout. Like, you watch the videos, you know that was packed. But actually, there was a top sort of rung of seating right above, and they weren't even a quarter filled. The bottom bit
I mean, you say not even a quarter filled. I didn't see many. Like, you know, I saw maybe a couple of the occasional person here and there in those upper echelons. Like, you don't see it on the stream because they're so focused on Team 104. But if they pan the camera up, or the very few times they pan the camera up, you saw how fucking empty it was up there. That was a 7,500 seat venue. How are you expecting to more than double that? Especially when Vegas was around about the same sort of area, and you saw how empty that did look on certain occasions, you know?
Yeah, exactly. That's my problem with this announcement, because the location is actually still a little bit of a problem for me. I don't mind it being East Coast America. That's absolutely fine, because
it's not a decent fucking time, you know?
Yeah, that's sort of like a nice middle ground between it's for the whole world, essentially. Plus, they've already come out in the past, and I think even Art, who's part of the team, part of the art design team, whatever, even put out their sort of like thinking of, oh, West Coast is one region, East Coast is another, and EU is the third region. So that pretty much leans towards, okay, next LAN will probably be in EU. And that makes sort of sense in my mind anyway, of going West Coast, East Coast, EU, and keep that rotation. That seems perfectly fine. We'll see down the line when OCE gets a little bit uppity about them never having a LAN and want one out there. Same for South America, but that's the way I'd imagine it's going to rotate for them.
Yeah, for me, that's where the argument of whole East Coast versus West Coast falls down. It's like, you know, if you're going to go West Coast, East Coast, Europe, then why don't we just go West Coast, East Coast, West Europe, East Europe, CIS, Russia, Japan, China, fucking go. Let's just go like literally round the circle, essentially. Like, you know, that's an argument point that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, you know?
Because for me, it makes sense in West Coast and the East Coast. My only problem is that they're going New Jersey, which is still relatively close to Washington, D.C., you know, from where they went before. I would have preferred to see them go down to, say, Florida or go to Texas or something, you know, in the middle, or maybe a little bit north. Let's hit up... I don't know, Toronto, if you want to stay on East Coast, but make it a Canadian one, or go slightly more inland and go with something Chicago, you know, branch out, because a lot of people, I saw, it was a little bit of a weird one, on Twitter going, oh, you're coming to New Jersey, I can go now. And it's just like, hang on. The guys in EU were like, everyone across the whole of EU is quite happy to fly across, you know, from Italy over to London, and that's not a problem. Yet going to states, which admittedly America is a lot larger, we have to say, so going 2-3 states is about the same trek, but not thinking about doing that, it's a big mindset difference. I think the whole of EU, you put it anywhere in EU, and the EU fan base will go there. You know,
that's because
it's not the same.
Yeah, but it goes back to the root of this podcast, though. Like, EU's always hard done by Bacon, like it always is. You know, let's have a think about this, right? If we're going off the basis of the West Coast, East Coast, and you know, and Europe land, then essentially one continent has 2 fucking lands out of 3. Like I'd say that's pretty hard done by, you know. I'd say that would be, you know, that's my argument for certain stake. And then you also got to consider the fact that we don't have any EU talent. We don't have a system that, you know, supports the bubble scene, which right now is at its prime right now. You know, we don't have anything that supports the European bubble scene. You know, we don't have any EU casters out on the RLCS. We don't have an EU studio that covers the intricacies of the you know of the rest of Rocket League. You know, we talked about that on the last episode of Aftershock and stuff like that. You know, like we don't think that the region gets its fair dues, you know.
Well, just
and that sort of like goes back in, and that sort of like feeds into everything. It's like, yeah, okay, they're gonna fly over to London because that's the one chance that EU is gonna get to fucking, you know, see the RLCS live, because next time it's probably gonna be in the States, and indeed that's what happened, and the next time probably gonna be in the States again, and indeed that's exactly what happened, you know.
Yeah, so next one is going to probably be EU just because of the whole regional difference. But for me, the big, like, on your note of, like, EU talent, that I was incredibly surprised not to see Shogun back this season, because it all came down to a visa issue, you know, him not going along, or so that's what I've been told. And so for him not to be there, that was a real weird one, because I'm just going to say it now that he makes it a lot more hype. Like, I'm looking at the current casters, and they're not hype casters, and you need a whole, like, wide array. And so me looking at there, and it's just a full NA one, not even having Shogun, who by far is, I would say, probably the best universal caster, what with play-by-play. And it's a very much mixed bag of me there going, this is a bit of an odd one. Like, just keeping on the same bag of Turtle being introduced. Turtle was fantastic this weekend. I'm just not going to say anything bad about him there. But it was like a weird sort of... We even saw some of the community on Reddit going, this is a bit odd that you've got just a player jumping on in and not one of the guys from the RLRS jumping up until that spot, which we are going to be seeing Jorby. He's already announced that he's moving up to RLCS, and it's a whole different sort of bag where players, we're getting to a stage which is quite cool, where players are going to be stepping up onto being more analyst sort of roles, but it's still just a bit weird that you're not seeing any EU guys still on the RLCS stream, which is a bit lacking in, like, depth, you know, because we saw it with the RLRS play-ins that they didn't know the EU scene, and that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, like, here's the thing that people don't seem to understand about the idea of different regions being represented on an international broadcast. It's like, yeah, sure, for North America, it's fine because you're expecting a North American style. But as an EU caster, and especially as someone who is invested in the art of commentary and the art of entertainment through voice, like, it's dull, right? Because there's no variety in things. I've said it time and time again, I don't like Stax' style of casting, but I would never, ever remove him from the RLRS or any of the broadcasts he's on, because he's different from the other guys. He is a completely different style, and honestly, there are times where I don't really want the standard stuff, and Stax is absolutely perfect. I might not appreciate, or I might not, you know, particularly enjoy what he does, but I appreciate that he's good at what he does, and he also is like an extra element, like, you know, variety is the spice of life. Variety is the spice of life, sorry. Variety is the spice of life, you know. I don't want to eat lice. Fuck that shit. But, you know, you know, and that's the thing that I think that the RLCS has been missing since Shogun sort of like, you know, since Shogun left. And you know what, I'll give a little bit of leeway to this, because like American visas can be a really fickle thing. Like, like, you know, I know from myself trying to apply to American visas myself, even just for a holiday, you know, for an extended holiday going out for like a month or two. Like, it's fucking impossible. It is fucking impossible. Which again, sort of like goes off to the argument of, let's get an EU studio so that way we have a little bit of variety, you know, that way we can, you know, see what the talent overseas has to overcome, because, you know, we've got situations where guys who have never casted in their entire lives, circa Turtle, you know, are getting opportunities on the biggest stage in the Rocket League space. And I'm not saying that Turtle doesn't deserve the opportunity, but I'm saying, but what about the rest of the guys that have been doing this for years?
For me, actually, that was a little bit of an unseen risk with Turtle. I would have expected him to go straight on to, say, the RLRS desk or something, not RLCS. That is perfectly, like, normal. That's the expected. So for him to go on to RLCS, is there some sort of scheduling conflict going on? Who knows what's going on there? But, like you said, the the variety is good because Turtle did come in with more of a player's perspective, and the way he talked, I absolutely fucking loved. I question the sort of James Bott mix-up with him. I would prefer to see personally Wave, but again, that's personal preference. It don't matter. And like we were saying, with the whole variety, like you take Stacks and compare him to Wave. Wave, in a lot of sense,
they're two completely different fucking sides. Completely different casters.
I've had people that absolutely love Wave's sort of commentary style, but hate Stacks, or vice versa, where they can go, "Oh, Wave's a bit boring. He's a bit slow," but it's like, for some people, that's what they like. And again, for EU, we know from a lot of the EU guys, they don't like the NA commentators because we're used to, say, a more football approach or rugby approach instead of just American football or ice hockey, sort of like, as you do see, that is what the American style is quite based off. And you've just got to vary it out a little bit. I would actually quite like to see Yummy Cheese Man get a bloody go on the desk and, get flown over. But of course, there's a lot of cost behind it, so you can understand where they would prefer to fly out a caster, get them to stay 2 nights and then fly back home, instead of when it comes to an EU or an OCE guy, like I said with Yummy Cheese Man, they'll have to fly out and probably stay out there the entire season because it does cost that much money. You got to think flights between EU and NA will be setting you back just shy of £1,000 and then try and do that every single week. Yikes. It does rake up a lot of money, but when you're trying to put in the quality to your broadcast, you do pay those costs.
Well, it would be, honestly, a way that you could cut those costs and still bring in the talent would be, of course, to get international studios. And they've already done this with the SAM series, where they've got the Rocket Street guys in their own studio. Obviously, Gfinity are running the Oceanic region this time. The EU is the one region that is not run by its own not independent, but, its own sort of like specialist studio. And honestly, I think that probably we benefit from that, like in the same sort of way. Like just give the European RLCS and RLRS to a Gfinity UK, or to an ESL UK, or to a fucking ESL HQ, for example, or even to a StarLadder. Like, StarLadder have been balling out of control with their contract work lately. Like, I don't know if you've been watching the PUBG Europe League. It looks fucking immense. Like, if Rocket League got the production value of that shit, then honestly, we would have a completely new sort of... We'd have a completely new mindset on the way we broadcast the game. Like, I'm absolutely certain with that. And again, my own personal biases, I work with StarLadder. I'll throw that up on broadcast, of course. But it doesn't change the fact that they're doing amazing stuff out there. So I'd really like to see something like that come for the RLCS at some point at the very least,
Yeah, and definitely, like, it would secure Rocket League as an esport, I personally think, because at the moment we're getting to a point, and it is worrying me a little bit, I'm going to say, of a bit of complacency within the scene, where it's a lot of the same old, same old. Like, Sam getting added to RLCS is awesome, but when you actually look into it, where it's only an extra $60,000 essentially going into their sort of league, and then added on to... the RLCS finals, like the finals format getting changed up is going to be awesome, but that is just one small part of a big machine, and that whole machine is starting to show its age. We've said it before, we said it last week, definitely with formatting, where there needs to be a big shake up, and it needs to happen soon to sort of like give Rocket League a sort of 2.0 aspect to it, and rebirth it, because it's been too long. Like, you look at every other esports and they change the style, they change the format up roughly every, I would say 2-3 years, whether it be just a minute way or in a large way to sort of adjust to the scale of the scene. But Rocket League does need that. I'm loving that we're seeing DreamHack come in. That has been awesome to see, and I can't wait for Dallas, which is actually the open qualifiers are coming up this weekend, this Saturday for EU, and Sunday for NA, I think it is.
Do you have any information on who's going to be covering that, by the way?
No. I don't want to say too much, but I did ask about it over the weekend and was just there like, nope, we haven't heard back from the people up top, which is unfortunate. So, I mean, one thing I do love about the EU community is that if it came around to say, let's say Thursday or Friday, and we suddenly go, oh, you guys are doing the broadcast for this weekend, the EU guys would be able to pull it off because they just always can. That is one thing I'm very proud of with the EU Rocket League community, is they can make shit work out of nothing, and I love it.
Well, it's a shame because I'm not actually going to be able to cover this weekend, unfortunately, and I am scared that I actually get it because like I did put my name down to do the DreamHack Open qualifiers, but I've got paid work coming up, so I'm certainly going to accept that over DreamHack. But at this point, we've gone on a completely different tangent. Let's just end off by saying, okay, the LAN is great because like we've gone very fucking far away from the initial topic, and but again, we'd like to see some changes over the course of Rocket League. I think that's kind of like the whole point of the podcast at this stage. So thank you, because we're actually going to get to that bit in a moment. We're going to get to the mailbag because our news is over. Our mailbag, where of course our Discord fans can ask us questions and we'll answer them live or not so live in this particular case on air on the podcast. Of course, you can't type exclamation mark Discord because it's not on Twitch, but you can find the link to the Discord server in the show notes, the description of the video and audio versions of this podcast. And of course, you have the little channel that says mailbag, where you can write us a little question or topic. Right, this week we're going to go back to our old friend Frostbite, the man dem himself, and Mr. he asks. Yeah, honestly, it was a few weeks ago where we said if we get enough news and enough mailbag, then we'll actually do a show, but we didn't. So we just got this backlog of a few different questions, all from Frostbite. He asked like 8 or 9 of them, and it's like, okay, the next few weeks are just going to be all Frostbite on mailbag. So he asks 2 questions this week, and we're going to start with our first one. Is the lack of downtime between action making it harder for talent like yourself to become a personality within Rocket League? Honestly, I'd say it's more of the abundance of downtime that's making it harder for talent like us to become personalities within Rocket League. Like, there is very, very little in the way of international or regional competitions outside of the RLCS and RLRS. Like, we've got TCS, sure, which is obviously the thing that me and you do, Bacon, and me and Jam are taking on Fragbyte's Frag League. But these aren't going to be recognized as internationally major tournaments. Like, they're going to be, that they'll be known as like their own little regional things, because the rules are you have to have Swiss players in TCS and you have to have Nordic players in Frag League. So those are never going to be, and as well as that, they're not been promoted as highly as the RLCS because of how centralized the World Championship is to the Rocket League landscape. Like everyone knows that to find the best in Rocket League, you go to the Rocket League channel, and we don't have access to that shit on Frag League and TCS.
Yeah, and it's also a big case of both these 2 leagues are flying, I would say, under the $5,000 radar, to which they don't have to get Psyonix's approval and all of that purely for whatever reason. So, of course, lower prize pools to the outside. I've seen it before where I can remember back during the Renegade Cup, during the very first one, where people were looking at like a $5,000 prize pool. And you get new people into Rocket League actually laughing at it, thinking this is what your pros play at. And it's like, no, these guys aren't pros. But where it's getting like built up in that, even by the main like Twitter, it looks a little bit bad. And so there definitely needs to be a boost within the prize pools, which then brings up the whole status. Money makes people interested. That's essentially it, isn't it? From being players interested
Not
in
necessarily.
To which actually I did quite like the response from a lot of players about Frag, where I found it quite cheeky, where you had quite a lot of English or French players going, are there only 2 Nordic people I can play with in this? Like, and I absolutely love that. We've seen that with TCS, with a lot of people in that mindset go, oh, is there any teams needing a sub this season, or wants a high Grand Champ player that could just fit into your roster, because I would quite like to play in this and, maybe get a free trip out to Zurich. And that's what you're seeing. And it's more for fun rather than the seriousness of teams. That's my only problem.
And honestly, like, I feel like that's more of a conversation or topic about the state of those particular tournaments, because obviously it causes some situations where you have to, entirely change your team for the sake of this one tournament, which, I'm not really approve of that per se, but at the end of the day, what real choice do we have because of the situation and the sort of like the the restrictions imposed by Psyonix? Like, you don't really have a whole lot of choice, because otherwise you're not going to make any money. So, you have to have TCS sponsor this, so that way they can appease to the Switzerland market, so that way they can, make their own money back off the back of the sponsorship of that particular tournament. And obviously you've got the same thing for Frag League, who are based in Sweden, who are based in the Nordic region, so they've got to make it a Nordic tournament, which fits in with their product, which overall will make them money. You've got no other choice than that. Like, it's because of these restrictions that we can't really, and because of the fact that we can't really host any major international tournaments for Europe, that that these things can't get recognised and they can't get noticed, and as a result, we can't get recognised of our own way. There are some things getting in place. Again, I'll just like peek behind the curtain of that thing that I was mentioning earlier at the top of the show. Like, there are some things which hopefully will help, but honestly, the way that I got noticed in Counter-Strike, sorry, not in Rocket League, but the way I got noticed in Counter-Strike was by doing the smaller tournaments, the third-party stuff, the stuff that was not run by ESL or fucking Starlight or anything like that, and eventually building my way up to those points by doing all the third-party stuff at the lower end. And there isn't any third-party stuff at the lower end for Rocket League to allow casters like us to build up to that point.
I would argue, say there is that third party like stuff, because that is what Fragbite and all of that is. But there's not. But it's not significant. Tier. There's not a middle tier. There's no, like you said with Star Ladder in Rocket League at the moment. There's no ESL $50,000 events going off every few months, which would be the prime place for, say, ourselves to move into. There's not that, which is what the community is crying out for, because those ESL events are also really, really good for the bubble teams to finally get picked up and, start forming and taking it seriously, because we've said it before, at the moment it is RLCS and high-level RLRS or nothing. And I'm hoping that's going to change sometime soon.
With luck, I'm praying. I mean, again, like to me, it feels like it's such a simple solution if you find if it literally, it's just to change those community guidelines, because I know that there are tournament organisers that would lap that shit up if they just had the restrictions lifted.
Yeah, it's the community guidelines is a bit of a weird one, because I understand why that's in place, but still, from what I'm working on all of that, you're still seeing this very much. Okay, even if we want, say, the, anything above, yes, we want you've got to go for Science's approval, but also we want Science's backing on these projects, purely because it's almost like the Psyonix seal of approval, and if this is a Psyonix event, they're going to back it on their Twitter, they're going to broadcast this out to the world, and that's what we want, is the extra coverage, the extra viewership from them, more than anything.
Well, again, it's a comment on sort of like the centralized nature of Rocket League at the moment, Like, again, I know that there are tournament organizers that would happily, post a decent tournament up there that is significant in a certain way, but they just don't exist because Psyonix, because you need that Psyonix seal of approval, Yeah,
that is pretty much the problem. Like you said, just decentralize it, bring in your... Have I actually even seen MLG, I was going to say that, do anything over...
Not past their Pro League, I don't think.
No, the last thing, I can remember them doing sort of was just more contractual work, really. You can even argue the same with Faceit quite often. But those sort of guys to come in, like Faceit's already got the partnership there, but to put on like a Faceit Pro League where essentially you would have to do... I would like to see a bit like, I've always said it, I love the sort of Swiss system from the CSGO Faceit sort of like style, where you go through rounds, and we're talking a tournament twice a year run by Faceit, but sort of runs in the midweek so it can run alongside RLCS, and it's all about developing through the challenger level up to Legends, and then on to the you got minors, then challenger, and then the Legends stage, don't you, to then go to this LAN final, and it can be run over a long period of time, so that you've got a lot of action going on. You could get in the smaller community casters for those lower minor levels, and then the big guys, of course, swoop in and take up the top, because that's what you want. That is how you make a healthy ecosystem straight off the bat, and that is really what I want the most.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with you there, to be honest. There's nothing else I think I can add to that one. Again, it's more of a comment on the, just, again, how centralized everything is in Rocket League. But we'll move on to the next question. The second one from Frostbite is something like couchcasting a good way of bringing the game to the viewer? Now, there's two ways you can interpret this, Bacon. One of them is not very good.
No, it's one that you don't Google couchcasting. Let's just say that. But what he means by it, Jay, is like near enough a more, we're a Rocket League broadcast, a Gold Rush sort of style event, ain't it, really?
Pretty much, yeah. I think that's probably the most comparable point. And yeah, Gold Rush, I don't know how much it did for bringing the game to a new viewer, because or bringing the game to the viewer, because like, again, it wasn't in front of the biggest audience. Like, it was certainly revered and loved and appreciated by everybody, but it was never on the Psyonix official Rocket League channel. It was never centralized alongside the RLCS. In fact, Psyonix actively tried to keep it down, as I've been informed reliably as of late. And Psyonix never really approved of what they were doing. And again, when you go back to the point of earlier about the whole Psyonix seal of approval, that's obviously a death sentence for any particular tournament of that particular regard. Like, I feel like it would be a great sort of unique format to make, and obviously they did that for the course of Gold Rush. But like, it's not something that it seems to be within the remit of the traditional and appreciated, I guess you could say, sports or esports format. You know,
that. It's just, I love the sort of couch casting format. You know it, like, I'm trying to set up stuff that could use it in the future, aren't I? And it's
we were
just
this close to doing it as well this week, but it didn't actually happen. So that's a rip.
It was a massive rip. And it's just that case of, well, if we can get it together, but to make couch casting work, you have to have the budget behind it, because, of course, you're getting all the casters into one place. So it's essentially you're doing studio work. And generally what you see from couch casting style is more, you'll get all the players in and they'll be run out of a house. So it's not very professional. It's more fun, more relaxed, and a lot more personality to it. I would much rather see, say, Beyond the Summit, where you've got, say, I don't know, between 4 to 8 teams do a sort of round robin stage, and whoever comes out on top wins the prize pool, whatever, rather than random players from out the world. But that was just a scale difference, weren't it? But of course, that costs a lot of money. Like, the non-professional nature of it is actually a nice little cutback on cost, because you don't have to rent out a studio. Quite often they'll just use someone's house, like one of the people involved's house, or they'll rent out a house knowing that they can do that for just a week, and it actually saves a lot of money doing it that way. But it seems to be blowing in the opposite direction of what Psyonix wants, nearly.
Had my mic on mute. That was my bad. Yeah, pretty much. I can agree with you on that front.
Then again, just me saying blows in the opposite direction. If some sort of like, I'm going to say a WSOE decided to do that couchcast format, I reckon they would allow it if they were able to be somewhat hands-on, like, you know, have a team, because they want to be involved in a lot of, and oversee, just near enough have a presence, more like a consultant, it seems. So as long as someone did come in with a full like plan and was saying this is what we're going to do, then maybe it'd be allowed. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think WSOE would be willing to do that, though.
Oh,
I mean,
no, not WSOE, but I'm saying an entity in that sort of format.
Yeah, I'm just saying, but
WSOE came in very unexpected.
What entity like that would be willing to do that, though? Like, WSOE want their boxing style sort of like trash talk culture thing. DreamHack want their super professional part of their sort of like expo thing. Obviously, Psyonix won't do it because they've got RLCS. Northern Arena probably won't do it because of their, you know, whole venue thing. Like, what is the entity that would do that in short? And you know what?
I'll do it.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. We're the guys that are the most willing to do that, because, like, you know, it would be nice to have a little bit of uniqueness to a broadcast like that. And like I was saying earlier, variety is the spice of life. You know, Beyond the Summit is one of my personal favorite. One of my personal favourite tournaments in Counter-Strike, just because it is so different, because it is a bit of a break from the arenas, from the super professional, suited and booted sort of levels. Like, no, it's just a bunch of guys who enjoy Counter-Strike, throwing up a bit of prize money and saying, fuck it, let's just chill about the game, let's talk about the game in a much more casual, laid-back style, rather than messing around by making, investing a load of money into this big thing. No, let's just make it casual, fun, because at the end of the day, that's what you play games for fun. And I feel like that was missing. That was one of the things that missed the most. I'm going to miss the most than the fact that Gold Rush shut down, essentially.
Yeah, that is it. You saw a lot more personality of the players, because everyone's been banging about it. There's not much personality to Rocket League when it comes to the stage thing, but that's like a weird nerves, not used to it sort of deal. When it came to like Gold Rush, they had bundles of it, and it was great fun to watch and actually get to know the players, almost like they were streaming, And we saw with Gold Rush, essentially, some of those guys weren't streamers, so you didn't get that sort of look into what they're really like scenario. So, yeah, once again, big shame to lose Gold Rush, but hope someone else will be able to pick up the mantle.
With any luck, it'll be Rewind Gaming. But thank you very much for your questions there, Frostbite. Once again, if you do want to leave us a mailbag, then you can find the Discord links in the description and show notes of every single show. You can find the channel that says mailbag, and you can leave us a question, and chances are we'll answer it live on broadcast. Right, let's get to our tournament roundup. We are very ahead of schedule today, Bacon. I mean, other than the RLCS, it has been a bit of a quiet week anyway, so I guess it's kind of expected. But maybe we might actually be able to hit our 1 hour and 30-minute mark for once. So I should maybe even be able to get closer to the hour mark. Because, that's the one thing people ask us the most for, is I only do 5-minute segments. Like, no.
Crap, knuckles, let's do this. Let's bang this out. Come on.
Right. Well, let's talk about the RLCS. First week has gone by for the European scene, and we have got our first set of results. Couple of interesting ones actually out of this one. I think for the most part, everything went as expected, but there were a couple of outliers that was like, okay, that wasn't expected. And the first one, actually, Triple Trouble versus the Bricks. The Triple Trouble side took it 3-2 in their favor with an OT in Game 5. Mouse Sports lost out to TSM 3-1, with TSM taking some pretty dominant victories above Mouse Sports. Vitality got their first victory above PSG at 3-1, and Mouse Sports managed to beat out Triple Trouble 3-1 all the same, with our biggest upset of the night coming at the end of the night when FC Barcelona managed to beat Dignitas 3-1. Okay, where do we want to start with this one, Bacon? What do you think we want to talk about first?
Right, so let's talk about Triple Trouble, because they were first up, and they had 2 matches this week. They had the double whammy alongside Mouse having to do a double whammy. So let's start with Triple Trouble. So that first match against the Bricks, this was a lot of weird back and forth. It was a very close series, super enjoyable. But when it came against Mouse, so, because I don't have much to say about the Bricks, it was just both teams, and then just the better team won in the end.
I mean, it was small caveats. I mean, I will add a small caveat to that particular series, because Speed was playing from Florida, so he was on like 150 ping throughout the entire course of that series. So it's not exactly a fair assessment of this matchup, but the fact that they're still able to take it 3-2, is not too terrible from the Bricks. But continue with your point.
But yeah, so I was going to say, there you've got that. For me, that's a very rounded result, and I was expecting these two to fight out, but Mouse versus Triple Trouble, now this was the one that really threw a lot of people off, because we've been banging on all about it before the season started, weren't we? Where Mouse should come out 8th. They should be getting demoted this season. They're not up to level. Now, I'm going to throw my hands up and say, well fucking done, Mouse, because in the month or so that we didn't see them, they have improved a lot, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, they legitimately look pretty good here. I mean, against TSM, it wasn't the most easiest of affairs. I mean, TSM certainly were able to destroy them pretty easily. I expected that particular result. But Triple Trouble, I also thought they were going to lose to them. And they actually managed to throw up some pretty decent numbers. They're a 4-0 series at one point, a 4-2 series. The series they lost was only 2-1 in the favour of Triple Trouble. And as well as that, it actually looked like this team is coming together at long fucking last.
But Jay, there's a caveat. It's all about play styles. So Mouse's play style, and I know a lot really fucking hates it, and they said it continuously on the stream, is cherry picking style is what works for him, and it worked beautifully here against Triple Trouble, purely because a lot would go in quite often and harass Tadpole, who's like the middleman connecting up the attack and defense. So Mouse's play style was perfect to go up against Triple Trouble. Against a team like TSM, where they're very much a strong 3-man rotation and they don't play the sort of pass and very strong build-up style that Triple Trouble have, they got demolished. I'm saying demolished. They did okay. Against TSM won 4-1, 2-1, lost 2-1, and then won 2-1. So Mouse are looking good, which saying they've actually got their style in order. The only problem being it's a style that will probably still only throw out Triple Trouble because of Triple Trouble's play style, where, like I said, it's very much Tadpole in the middle, and then his 2 teammates will go back from attack and defense. Pretty much what we expected Vitality to be playing as well, to be honest, with Fairy Peak and Scrub, switching between attack and defense, but they've gone into a completely different style. And for me, this matchup here just shows that I'm loving what Rocket League can develop into because of different playstyles. I was not expecting Mouse to be playing like this, and it means we've now got 4 different playstyles going on within RLCS EU alone, and that is super exciting.
Yeah, like if there's ever a rock paper scissors moment for RLCS, it would be right now, to be honest. And certainly with Mouse Sports, I want to just focus on them for a moment right here. How do we see them facing up against the rest of the teams? Because they have their own individual play style. I honestly thought they looked pretty good. It looked like a lot was finally fitting into this striker role that Mouse Sports really needed to fill. It took them a while to get there, but they have started to look like it is pretty good. But you say that there's a bit of a weird place. There's a different play style to everybody else. So how do we think they can do against some of the bigger teams like your Dignitases and your Vitalities, and I guess you can technically now say FC Barcelonas?
Mouse Sports are still going to lose to everyone bar Bricks. Bricks they've got a chance against. So again, that is purely down to playstyle problems. Like, not problems as such, but
we're
just...
going on the angle of building up a little bit of hope here, and you're just like, nah, they're still going to fucking lose.
Hey, we have built up so much fucking hope. Before the season started, we thought it'd be 0-7. 0 wins, 7 losses. Now I'm there, like, you've got 1. I can see you getting 2. And if they get 2, they could come out 6th and be secure into next season. That is a massive jump in hope for anyone when you look at the stats. I'm just saying that's the most likely opponent they could win against. Barca, I expect a lot to find a lot of trouble because, of course, not a lot, but sorry, Mouse. A lot's not going to receive a lot of passes downfield because Barca are just going to bloody hammer them. So that 2-man defense is going to really struggle. Dignitas can handle any sort of pressure play all day long. PSG, a very similar note. Vitality are looking way too damn fast and should be able to just intercept because Vitality are just all full of pressure. We'll get onto them later. And then TSM, again, with that 3-man rotation, it's just something they'll be able to deal with. TSM, I would say after Bricks, it's probably your best bet to lose against Mouse. But TSM proved that wrong, on the first day. So there you have it.
I mean, fair enough. I mean, you explained it in more detail than I ever could. I mean, fair play. That's
why I do colour.
I mean, we'll see how it rolls for Mouse Sports, I think. But to phone back in on Triple Trouble, I mean, like they had. I didn't expect. I mean, they kind of won and lost the results that I expected them to not win and lose. Essentially, I expected them to lose against the Bricks, and I thought that they'd win against Mouse Sports. So where do we see them after we've seen them play for their first week in the RLCS compared to the rest of the RLCS teams?
I'm going to hate myself for saying this, Jay, but I think they're going to bottom out. I reckon they're going to be in the bottom 2 now. And do you know why?
I should also just stress to the guys at home, this is completely role reversal from where Bacon stood on Triple Trouble when they first promoted, and even when they brought in a new blood to replace Speed. Like, he was saying they're still at least top 4, top 6 in the world, and now he's saying they're going to get bottom of the RLCS. Like, this is a complete
This is why
role
I'm
reversal
saying I'm
from
hating
Leroy.
myself for saying it, and it's purely because of these teams would have been scared of Triple Trouble, and then seeing how Mouse had played, you've now got a week. Triple Trouble will return next week to TSM, which would have been a tricky game already. But if they just look at it and go, okay, if we just harass Tadpole, which we know Ignite, Remco, and Metza can do, they're not going to have a fun time here. Triple Trouble either need to do something about their play style to which they can take a bit of harassment and maybe fall off and rotate in different ways, or they're going to have to change up entirely. And that is scary purely because all the other teams would have looked at that match between Mouse and gone, holy shit, how did Mouse do that? Because again, everyone else is thinking the exact same thing of how on earth did Mouse take down Triple Trouble. This is something which no one expected, but Mouse's playstyle worked, and you can expect other people to copy that and try and abuse it. So for me, this is Triple Trouble. You've got to change up massively, otherwise you will bottom out quite heavily in this tournament. And I do not want to say that because I love the Triple Trouble roster, of course.
Oh, yeah.
But that is just the fact of it. That was a very dominating victory for Mouse, and we saw the Twitter afterwards where a lot of people were there going, Not a lot of people, a lot of the players going, oh, we choked, we threw. And no, you just had a Mouse that were playing incredible. Like, we look at the first two games, right? Mouse won 4-2, 4-0. Their playstyle was perfect. Triple Trouble was starting to adjust. They got game 3 and then game 4 they lost. But again, this is Mouse, who everyone considers the weakest of the bunch, and expect some of the stronger teams like Dignitas, especially Vitality, to be able to harass and, you know, send long clearances and just get past your guys' playstyle a lot better. So Triple Trouble has essentially fallen to their opponent, which of course has that playstyle that works, but everyone else should be able to replicate that and at a higher level, which is scary.
So not a good outlook for Triple Trouble, according to Digital Bacon. That'll be a fun thing to see.
I hate saying it.
That'll be a fun thing to see going forward in the next week. But we'll move away from them for the moment. We'll talk about Vitality, because you mentioned earlier they're looking really, really good. And honestly, they are looking really, really good. We saw one match this week from them. It was against PSG, but this probably had to be the most important single match of an entire week, especially for Team Vitality, because there's obviously the extra pressure of Scrub Killer saying, oh, we're not going to lose to you throughout 2019. They've already gone, I think, 3 out of 3 prior to this point. And now this is the 4th match they faced, and they finally come up with a victory against PSG, Bacon. And it wasn't like a fluke, it wasn't like anything like that. Like, no, they actually looked pretty damn good.
What did I tell you last week, dude? Vitality, I reckon, will win RLCS this season, and that was the proof in the pudding. Like, their play of just solid...
it's one fucking result, okay?
against PSG, who are so solid online. Like, this PSG will, you would think anyway, would get top 4 just purely because at the league stage, when it comes to LAN, we'll see what else, because of course they do struggle at LANs. But here, Vitality just absolutely owned them every single turn. So the rundown of the scores for everyone at home, which were a little bit closer in the first 3. So 2-0 to Vitality, 2-1 to Vitality, 2-1 to PSG, and then 5-0 to Vitality in that last and 4th game. And it all came down to such impressive speed and pressure coming out from Vitality, which you would see more from the NA teams like Cloud9. But this was executed perfectly. It was almost like, I want to say Savage, or say Barcelona, levels of just pressure and aggression. But they also have Scrub, who's ready in defense at all times. It was so impressive to watch on the pitch. And they're not doing the sort of Barca level of wanting to get goal. No, they're playing so calculated, so clever, and it is so cool to see. Like, Vitality are looking so damn hot, and they are looking so strong, and especially with Dignitas' loss this week, for me, they're the team to beat now.
I mean, I have to agree, to be honest. Like, they're looking very scary. Do you know who else is looking very scary, Bacon?
Oh, go on, tell me.
Fairy Peak. Fairy Peak actually looks good. He's back. He's back in business. I don't know what it is about K-Dot, but he's somehow managed to ignite Fairy Peak to look really, really good. Like, I mean, there was some situations I saw in that particular series where, PSG was suffering because, like, those two players passing between each other, like, Scrum and K-Dot are doing really, really good to set up Fairy Peak. And it's not a case that I was doubting Fairy Peak's skill. I mean, last couple of months I've been doubting Fairy Peak's skills overall. But the way that they've set up these passing plays and the way that they set up Fairy Peak to perform, like, he's capitalized on it. He's done really, really well in doing so,
So, to follow up on that point, we're still seeing double commits come out of Vitality due to them still being relatively fresh. But the way they play, it don't matter that they double commit, because when they build out from their defense, quite often, you'll notice their first hit, say a shot is put at net, their first hit is to get off to the side, either to the wall so that they can chase onto it there, or down by the boost, to which they'll chase onto that. Their second hit is always out to a second man, either in the middle or the very far opposite end. And then that third hit quite often lands in Fairy Peak's lap, to which he will go for a shot on net. That incredible turn of being able to double commit, like, think of 2 players at your own goal, crisscrossing, both going off those 2 back boosts, one of them passing to the other, and then to the third man in the centre, like I said, quite often Ferry Peak, to which they've turned what was quite a scary attack, and you look at it and go, oh shit, they've had to double commit to cover as much ground, and then they can just turn it into gold. Like, Vitality for that turnaround sort of play is incredible. Doing it against PSG is incredible. The only people I can see that this could be a bit scary and where they might not be able to do that against is possibly Barca. And that's purely because of their continuous, attacking play. TSM take, like, say, 2 shots and then they'll go back, hold the midfield line. Barca will just continuously be hammering away, so we'll see how that goes next week. That's the actual first match up on stream. But if Vitality can handle Barca, we could see the run, like, just a whole brand new Vitality run. Like, this could be the start of their era, possibly.
Could well be. I mean, it's certainly going to be a task against FCB not tomorrow, sorry, and this weekend, obviously. Mm-hmm. And actually, since we're on the topic, I might as well just go into our last topic, which is FC Barcelona. I mean, this is the most legit win you could possibly have. Like, everyone counted them out as like, there's no way they're going to beat Dignitas. This Dignitas side are looking fresh, hot off the back of DreamHack, and then now we're looking at this like, okay, what happened here? Like, FCB dominated Dignitas. Not dominated, I won't say, but they looked really confident against Dignitas over the course of their series. Like, this was shockingly good. Like, if you ever wanted to see a case study of exactly how the FC Barcelona or Savage have adjusted to support their defensive elements, like, go back and watch them in the RLRS last season and then watch game 1 of this series. Like, the adjustments from Alpha were absolutely insane.
Yep, and again, comes down to Alpha. Devo, I will say, has stepped it up where he's having to do a lot more accurate plays, because that was always his problem. He had great speed, great, like, say, control on that, but his finishing, his sort of, like, accuracy was always a little bit, I would say, middle of the pack, which, when everyone was comparing him to, say, your Fairy Peak and all of that, being middle of the pack ain't good. You've got to be the star player on the team. But the problem is, Barca has 3 star players. So it's like, when you're the one that's just fallen off, it can be really quite harsh. And that's how Devo got a lot of, stick. This week, though, Dignitas weren't playing well. I'm going to say that right now. You could see their accuracy was completely off. Their speed was not there. They were very indecisive. It almost felt like they came into this game not prepared, thinking they were just going to win it because it was the new guys, it was Barca coming through, which I hope is not the case because they faced off against them back at DreamHack, weren't it? And that was a super close series there, so they should have known the threat that they can come in with. And like you said, Alpha, for me, is on the road to being one of the best players in the world, if he isn't already.
I'm calling it now. I'm calling it now. Like, he's going to be the next Turbo Pulsar.
He is the Alpha.
That is it. The Alpha. No, seriously, like, we talk about how Turbo might have contention for the best player we have right now in Rocket League because of how many titles he's won. Like, it would not surprise me if in like a year and a half's time we're looking at Alpha in contention for that picture. Like, he is so good. I don't think we've seen a player like him ever in Rocket League. Like, there's never been someone who's just so good on both offense and defense and adjusting between the two and managing to still keep a star player role in spite of all that. Like, he's just amazing. He is. I'm gushing over this kid. Like, he is so good. He is so good. Like, I'm thinking back to a time, like a few years ago, about 2016. We were looking at the guys in Counter-Strike, especially. We were looking at some of the players that could potentially come up and be some of the best players in the world. And one of the names that stuck out was always Simple. Simple could be one of those guys. And honestly, I think Alpha is Simple in 2016 right now. Like, I think he could end up being one of the best players in this game without a doubt, GOAT status contender.
Yeah, I was going to make that sort of like comparison of, Turbo might be your, say, device or whatever, but Alpha is your Simple. Like, he's a little bit less experienced where he hasn't been in the scene so long. That's because Alpha's... like Simple in 2016.
I
think Alpha is he still 15 or is he 16 yet? I don't know. So
he must be 16 because I think is that the limitation on
DreamHack, wasn't it?
DreamHack or RLCS. I can't remember which one specifically.
RLCS is 15. for sure.
Okay.
But yeah, at any rate, Alpha is going to be one of these players. You can see it down the line where whatever team you stick him on, he will make that team good. And that's a very scary prospect. It's almost like, I want to say a K-Dop. Like, he is a better K-Dop. That's what I want to say. Like, and that's harsh because K-Dop's fucking fantastic. But Alpha, with those defensive capabilities, he is just a man of every single position and he will cover every basis. And I'm scared for what the future holds, whether it be for Barca or just for Alpha alone, because he is going to be the Alpha. He is going to be the next big player if he continues this upwards trajectory that he is currently doing, because I said he will be the best player. At the moment, I'm going to say he's probably in top 10, but he's not far away from, like, that top 10 is heavily contested, you know?
Very heavily contested at the moment, but I think he's going to be one of the guys that stands out in the future. And again, I'm actually really excited to see how that goes for him because, like, again, he's just absolutely insane. You know, this is a kid that we looked at. He was such a great offensive element during his time in Savage, and we were like, okay, he's the best player on this team without a doubt. And now he's gone on to not only
the problem is he's just humble. That's it. He doesn't speak that much. So, like, when you look at Barcy, you think just Bluey because he is the most outspoken player. He's got the biggest fan base, streams, all of that sort of jazz. But Alpha, we've said it all along, is the sort of secret MVP to that roster. And it's still staying true now. It happened last season at RLRS and it will continue this season.
Yeah, and again, I'm really hyped to see what they can do next week because they're up against Vitality, and you know it's going to be fun. This actually might be a pretty big clash of the Titans, Bacon. But before we end off the show, I want to ask you, what are your matches to look forward to? What are you going to be following in next week's RLCS?
So, remember, RLRS returns next week as well.
Oh, yes, of course. I completely forgot. That's
so
my bad.
Let's just go. I'm going to go 2 games from RLCS, 2 games from RLRS. So next week is going to be Barca Vitality, purely because, like I said, this will be the making for Vitality. If they beat Barca here, I reckon they're on the run. They've got... Remember, Vitality also have Dignitas next season. And that, for me, could also be the second match. But I want to throw it onto TSM Triple Trouble. Because Triple Trouble, if they beat TSM, that's my worry squashed, you know, from this week. And that will mean these guys have got the capability, they've got the work ethic to be able to turn things around. And that's a real harsh sort of thing to say purely because it's fucking TSM, you know? Like, I'm not giving them an easy hurdle to jump over, am I, really?
No.
For RLRS, yikes. I don't think they've even been announced, have they, for RLRS?
They're not?
Like, the matchups? No, they haven't. I'm trying to...
Well, ain't that just typical...
Not salty or anything. I'm going over to Smash now. But what are your 2 to look out for RLCS next season?
I'm going to go with both the Vitality matches, honestly. Like, you know, I think those are going to be some very spicy matches. Again, with what FCB showed this week, and obviously what, you know, and what Vitality and Dignitas have to hold as, like, possibly the best 2 teams in the whole region at the moment. Like, you know, that's going to be some, those are going to be some seriously spicy matches. Like, I would agree that it's kind of difficult to put between Dig Vitality and TSM TT. But I'm going to go with the Vitality matches just because they have a lot riding on them for the future of all the teams involved, and certainly with the status of all the teams involved over the course of the RLCS season as a whole.
Yeah, I can't find anything about...
Well, that's fucking shit.
Plans, EU promotion, EU RLCS league play, but not RLRS. That's really odd. It's not up on Smash. I'm really confused right now.
I mean, we know only a couple of the fixtures from behind the scenes talk, but I don't know if I want to reveal those.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we're going. We know the fixtures from, you know, behind the scenes stuff. But
fuck it. Fuck the fixtures. Fuck the fixtures. Let's just talk about the teams individually. Name me 4 teams that you're looking forward to seeing in the next week.
Oh God, you're making this like hard. Even when you're saying half of the teams, who are you looking forward to? And I'm just there like going, oh, I can't pick that, mate. Right overs. I want to see Skyline just completely, we've said it before, that storyline. Bilbo, absolutely love. I think he's going to be the next hot thing. And Calix, so you've got 2 solid players in RLRS, and you've got Bilbo who could potentially be the next hot shit, so great. ARG, you've got to love a bit of Spanish Bim Bam. Xenomoon, I like where these guys are going, and I hope they can continue on the upwards trajectory, but they're probably like the fourth out of my options. And last but not least, it's got to be Complexity. You can't say anything against Complexity. Like, if they can perform like they did in those DreamHacks, they're just going to easily stomp it this season, even with the rest of the competition. And then they'll go into, RLCS next season and be there, like, slap the dick on the table and go, "Did you miss me, boys?" And just completely bash it out again. And that'd be great. But we're all doing this off of what we've seen Complexity in the past. We haven't seen them for like a month. And if they've gone shitters, then yikes.
Well, I mean, that's going to be sort of like the benchmark week for me. I mean, certainly for Complexity's sake, and that'll be one of my 4 teams to watch in the first week. My other picks would have to be, also from returning RLRS, have to be Method, because obviously I've been following this team for a long time. I'm a really big fan of Rix Ronde and Burrito B, and having Ocelon in their talent line, he's a pretty good player. I want to see, obviously they did well with Casio in their mix, but I want to see what Ocelon can do alongside the rest of Method, because I haven't seen him in action with this team as of yet. And I think it could be make or break just off the back of that first week for them. The other 2 teams we'll be looking out for is ARG, just because they have been so white hot coming into this season, just because of how good they have been. And just how reputable I've seen them perform in the likes of the Renegade Cup, for example. And the other team, my 4th and final pick, would have to be the Right Overs. Again, I want to see how Skyline leads this team into victory, if they can do it in the first place.
Yeah, that. Pretty much it. We've got very similar reasons, but you can say that throughout the whole of the teams. Like, the 2 that I think will get a bit of stick about will probably be Vikings, because the Fnatic roster never really worked. They've lost Snasky. Picking up Ponedex is good for them, but there's not high hopes, I think. That I'm hoping it's not true, but a lot of the community might see them as a bit washed, that sort of aspect, purely because the teams that are coming through now that made it through the play-ins are incredible. So it's going to be super hard competition for them. And then Baguette Squad, purely because they didn't get much, like they don't have much of a, I want to say, community presence outside of France, because the French region is a very closed off thing, isn't it? Like, we know you never hear anything about it unless you're watching in heavily to the Rocket Baguette stuff, which, as someone that can't speak French, you can understand why I don't listen in. I'll keep up to date on scores.
That didn't stop you working on APL, though, did it?
But yeah, there's a lot of... I don't think there's much hype for those 2 teams. The other 6, though... I would say we're probably a bit biased towards Right Overs, I reckon I would say we're probably a bit biased towards Right Overs. ARG is going to have so much Spanish, like, back in. Veloce's, the ex-Secrets, they've got a lot of fans that like them. Same for Method and Complexity. Xenomoon's the new up-and-comer, so that's cool. But Right Overs, where they were formed last second, essentially, for the RLRS. They probably haven't built up steam. This will be the making of them this season. Think back to old Placebo, before Nordvin picked them up. That sort of same situation where they came in, not really much expected of them. So if Right Overs bottomed out for whatever reason, everyone would be there like, oh, that's fair enough. But if they came out on top, you'd like, oh shit, where did they come from?
Well, I think that's the reason why I picked them, though, because of that potential for them to, like, rise above everything else in spite of all the odds against them. And I guess you could say the same sort of argument for Xenomoon or Baguette Squad, because also the same sort of situation, except for the fact that they've been together for a little bit longer. I just think the Right Overs, they have the talent there to potentially do it, and I think they're probably the most likely out of those 3 particular teams that will actually be able to pull that sort of run out.
Yeah. So Baguette Squad, the old Exalty side, as it were, I don't actually have... I would say I don't have much, like, in the way of high hopes. Like, I think they're possibly the weakest team out of the bunch. Maybe on par with Vikings. I think those 2 are actually the 2 weakest. I
can't disagree with that one.
But it's such a super hard, like, bracket, because, like we said, Complexity, by all rights, from their previous performance, should be up top. but we've only seen them play twice as this roster, so we'll see how that goes. Otherwise, this could be the chance for Method to finally rise, same for Loche, but they've got ARG and Xenomoon right there as well, and right over, like I said, where they're in the same sort of situation as Baguette Squad, where they don't have much weight on their shoulders. They could really thrive with that sort of lack of pressure, you know?
Well, let's see how much they'll be able to thrive in the next week of the RLCS and RLRS action. Of course, we'll be covering all that as usual on Aftershock, hopefully on Tuesday. Honestly, with the way that schedules are going and the fact that me and Bacon are working so fucking much these next couple of months, like it's going to be a bit of a weird one. I'm not sure if we can have too many live shows coming up, but we'll keep you updated. So make sure you follow us on the regular channels at RLAftershock and twitch.tv/RLAftershock, and also join the Discord as well, because that's where most of the communication goes down. That's where I'll be telling people about, oh, hey, here's a new episode, or here's a new live stream, or here's a new whatever. Again, it's in the description of all the show notes and descriptions of video and audio versions of the podcast. Speaking of which, you can follow the audio podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, and most other major platforms for distribution of podcasts. You can go to anchor.fm/RLAftershock to find your favorite platform or request it via the request button that is on that page. But other than that, it's been a short one, Bacon. We're done this week. I guess I can kind of blame that on the fact that there is not a lot of news, and we didn't actually plan a feature for this week because I'm not really feeling that creative at the moment. We'll figure something out for next week, though. Hopefully we can have a bit of a longer show.
Yeah, definitely. Next week we hope will be a bit longer. Of course, we'll have RLRS news to talk about. If there's not really any other news in the things, we might bring up a bit of TCS because we need to do like a little roundup. I reckon it's too early for that though. I
want to give it until I think I want to give it until the week break where we can talk about that.
Yeah, definitely. But otherwise, soon TM for this weekend. I cannot wait for RLRS to begin.
Neither can I. And make sure you're tuned in onto twitch.tv/Rocket League for that starting at Friday. On Friday at the first matches take place
5 p.m.
at
GMT. Christ, let me have a quick look.
6 o'clock BST. 6 p.m. BST.
So 5 p.m. GMT or UTC. Yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. Log that on your own time zone. Until that point, we're going to head off now. Thank you again for watching us here on the RL Aftershock podcast. I've been the Eternal J. This has been Digital Bacon, and we'll see you back here next week for even more of the Aftershock.